I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Friday, January the 17th, brought to you in part by Top Dollar Angus. Go to the Bluegrass video sale, Bluegrass Stockyards, on Friday, and there will be 2 loads of Top Dollar Angus featured cattle on there. Yearling steers and heifers from the Holt Farm Angus in Tennessee. These are verified natural, NHTC, all the bells and whistles. That Bluegrass Stockyards video is held in conjunction with the Kentucky Cattlemen's Convention. Be Friday, and those cattle will sell at 4 o'clock p.m. A steady struggle, and I tell you what, this is the 3rd week we've flirted right here with 124. We're a little bit on the weak side this time. We had more of that 125 the first week of these 3. We had more of the $2 dress last week, and now we've fallen back a little bit, but basically steady. Let's look at the board for Thursday. February live cattle futures down 47 cents at 126.12. April down $1.07 at 126.42. January feeder cattle 145.42. That was unchanged. March down 35 cents at 144.82. Talking about that fat cattle trade, which did develop on Thursday. Through Wednesday, we had only had 3,800 sell in the 5-area feeding region, negotiated cash, and so we really hadn't seen what the market was going to be. But remember, we did have those cattle sell on the Fed Cattle Exchange on Wednesday morning, 124, 124 and a quarter in the Southern Plains, and that kind of locked it into steady, and that's a very important forum right there, selling those cattle on an online sale there, and wish more people would support that. It is a competitive way to sell fat cattle. But we did have trade in the Northern Plains and the Southern Plains on Thursday, mostly at 124 live and mostly at 198 to $2 dressed, and a lot of that 199, and that's going to kind of be about $1 lower because most of our sales were $2 dressed in Nebraska, but still the lion's share of your cattle, if you combine the Northern and Southern Plains, selling live at 124. Let's look at the breakdown. Iowa had confirmed sales of 7,800 head from 123 to 126, and that would be a little bit of weakness because we had more of them selling towards the top of that range, but basically the same range last week. And your dress sales in Iowa, 198 to 199, did not see any confirmed sales of $2 dressed in Iowa. Nebraska, 18,000 head confirmed, and this is early in the day. There'll be more than that the time we get them all rounded up. But 124 was the main price live. That would be steady. 198 to $2, mostly 199, and like I said, probably be $1 lower for the most part on the dress side. Kansas, 17,700 head confirmed, 123 to mostly all 124, and that's sure steady. Texas printed for the first time in months. But Texas did print. That means we had more than 1 or 2 packers involved, and we had several different feedlots that were engaged there, and broke that 370-20 rule there. And we did get some information coming through those confidentiality filters on mandatory price reporting. About 5,800 head, which is not a bad movement for early in the day confirmation there, but all at 124 in Texas. Colorado still confidential. We did not see what happened there. Box beef cutout values inched up a little bit on Thursday with the afternoon trade. Choice cuts 212.90 up 37 cents. Selects 211.47. That was up $1.80. And we're not real sure why, but since 2015, looking at some information that was put together by Brett Crosby with Beef Basis, and he was showing in some analysis that before 2015, for several years, your box beef cutout values had a strong correlation with your fat cattle price. Since 2015, not so much. And they have very little correlation since 2015, and probably a lot of that gravy from the difference between box beef cutout values and the fat cattle price being sopped up by the packers. But we're getting down to where a choice and select is almost bringing the same price. This is the lowest spread we've seen for a long time. Choice select spread down to $1.43 on the Thursday afternoon trade. And you'd wonder, why is that? The main reason is cattle are grading better. And we've seen cattle grade better the last several years since the camera grading has completely taken over. It is more consistent, but we're slowly starting to see a higher percentage of choice and prime cattle than we ever saw when we had live graders standing on the line swinging hammers. And you wonder why that is. They can go back in there and recalibrate those back. Yeah, the cattle are a little bit better. Yeah, we're taking them to higher weights, and that's going to influence your grade in a positive way. But it's just hard to believe that cattle are grading that much better. But we've seen that for the last several years here. But now we're getting the better grading time of cattle. There's the cattle that are coming out right now, and we saw the grading percentage for the week ending January the 4th come out, and we're into the summer yearlings, those green grass yearlings that everybody wants so much when they're buying feeders. Those are some of the cattle that were coming out there the first week of January, and we saw choice and better, choice and prime cattle in Nebraska at 88%, Kansas at 85.1%. Big increase there. Of course, all those cattle coming off the Flint Hills, and those cattle are hard, got a little bit of age to them, hard yearlings there, and it just makes them perform better in the feedlot and makes them grade better. Texas, of course, not as well because more crossbred type cattle, 67.84% choice and prime in Texas for that week, the first week of January 2020. If you compare that to 3 months earlier, you go back to the middle part of October, coming out for the first week of October there, and you see that the grading was not nearly as good. Nebraska, like I just told you, was 88% first week of January. Go back 3 months, it was 83.2%. Kansas was the big jump, and I told you those summer yearlings and coming off the Flint Hills in Kansas there, they really performed. Like I said, it was 85.1 for the first week of January coming out. Go back to October, it was all the way down to 74.6. It's almost a 10% increase in choice and prime cattle in Kansas. Texas was backed off also too for October, down to 62.7% choice and better in Texas. But look at your slaughter for this week so far through Thursday, 488,000. That's exactly the same as last week and 4,000 better than the same week a year ago. You look at your actual slaughter data again for January 4th, and you're seeing that the dressed steer weights were ballooning at 912 pounds, and that goes right along with your better grading. If those cattle are having a heavier carcass there and heavier live weight, of course, they're going to grade better. They've been on feed longer. Of course, they went in at heavier weights, and they just perform better in the feedlot. But it's amazing how these cattle have been performing really for the last 5 or 10 years so much better than they were before. And genetics has something to do with that, but the way we're feeding those cattle has a lot more to do with that. Let's talk about your feeder cattle market. Your real-time index DV auction, 145.65, down 20 cents from Wednesday's close. And your markets were a little bit tougher around. Not sure why that is, because we've had such positive news in your trade with the new China deal being signed this week. But I tell you what, and I've talked about it here for the last 3 weeks, it's just your pen space is so limited. There's just no place to put these cattle. We keep trying to choke too many cattle in at the same time of the year. We need more fall calvers. We got about 65% of our calves being born in the first half of the year and only 35% in the second half of the year. And when we get into times like we've had the last several weeks, we're just trying to put too many of those big calves in the feedlot at one time, and we don't have space for them. Look at Pratt, Kansas, 4,300 head there on Thursday in Pratt. Winter livestock, Pratt, Kansas sold feeder steers mostly steady to $1 lower. Feeder heifers were steady to $2 higher. And this is telling me your corporate yards are coming back in and buying cattle, and it's not influenced quite so much by your northern feeders, which predominantly only bid and really press on the steer cattle. Wean steer calves there in Pratt, $2 to $4 higher. We've seen those selling so much better here the last couple of weeks. Ever since we've come back from the new year, these guys that are wanting grass cattle this spring are already starting to buy these lightweights, and they'll just put them in a holding pattern. That way they'll have them whenever they're ready for them, because there's not going to be enough of these light calves for the same reason I told you that we have too many big calves going into the feedlot. There's just not enough of those calves around this time of year. Heifer calves weighing 300 to 500 pounds, $1 to $3 lower, but the 5 to 6 weight heifer calves that were weaned steady to $2 higher in Pratt. Farmers and Ranchers Livestock, Salina, Kansas, 3,600 head. Feeder steers there $1 to $5 lower. Feeder heifers steady to $3 higher. Getting that steer heifer spread more back in line, and just not as many of those independent farmer feeders up there pushing on just the steers and letting the heifers lay, as a lot of them are getting their lots filled up too. Mitchell, South Dakota had 4,100 head on Thursday. Feeder steers there $2 to $5 higher. Of course, they're right up in that farmer feeder land up there and still filling a lot of holes. Feeder heifers steady to $4 higher. Nevada Livestock Marketing, I told you on the last visit they were having a big sale on Thursday. Some very impressive quotes, and for sitting in a part of the country there that's a long ways from your big feeding industry, very impressive calf prices. Look at this individual quote from Nevada Livestock Marketing in Fallon, Nevada. 61 head of 654-pound steers bring $162.50. At the biggest sale on Thursday, Ogallala, Nebraska had their 62nd annual stock show special there with 6,800 head. Look at this automated market report through DV Auction there. 602 head of the 4-weight steers average 447 at 205.86 on the average. That's all the light steer calves in the 4-weight category. 743 head of the 5-weight steers average 548 at 185 and a quarter. That's impressive. 937 head of 6-weight steer calves average 643 at 162.93. That would be a great individual quote, let alone the average on all the 6-weight steers at Ogallala, having well over 900 head of them. And 828 head of 7-weight steers average 742 at 154.80. Been talking about how guys are really getting aggressive on these flyweights, especially at one of these premium sales. Look at these individual quotes from Ogallala on lightweights. 51 head of 528-pound steers in Ogallala bring 197. 103 head of 468-pound steers bring 216, and 100 head of 404-pound little flyweight steers in Ogallala bring 230. That's your feeder flash for Friday.